And welcome to this episode of the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast, where I am joined by Kate Lewis. Kate is co-founder of E4Enable, but also on her LinkedIn profile, she describes herself as a sales enthusiast. So Kate, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Fred.
Thank
you for picking up on that.
You thought, when did I write that? So what were you thinking when you wrote that? Tell us about being a sales enthusiast, because that's why I want you here.
What does a sales enthusiast mean to me? It means that I am always learning. I don't class myself as an expert because I think it talks to being a finished article. I'm constantly absorbing new ways, new ideas, new things that work with sales, and I'm pretty passionate that sales can be done the right way, and perhaps remove some of the unglamorous aspects that have hooked themselves on a career in sales over the years. So yeah, that's what I mean about being a sales enthusiast.
Oh, wow. Right. It's a couple of things I need to jump in straight away on that. So sales the right way. What do you mean by that?
Am I allowed to swear on this?
Go for it.
Right.
Go for it.
I think sales has just had like this BMW driving bit of a wanker kind of reputation. If I can not mince my words over the years, I used to be when I was younger and I was in sales years ago. I used to be a bit embarrassed when you'd go to the pub and you'd be with people and they'd be asking what do you do? What do you do? I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm in sales. And it just used to be a bit cringy and I think, oh, people must think I'm rubbish. And that's not the case at all. It's both a science and an art. It takes years to hone your skills in it. It has a big experience base. And doing it right means that you can be super professional, you can enjoy it, you can hone your skills over time and become very, very good at it. So I don't think it's necessarily got the same reputation today that it perhaps once had, the same stigma.
No, I haven't got a BMW either anymore.
You shed that, you're like, oh my God, no, got to get rid of that.
When my mindset changed, funnily enough.
Apologies to anyone out there who's driving a BMW and is not a wanker, because it does not label everybody.
But do your indicators work? No. Sorry, we digress, because I knew we would. No, science and art, yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting. And I like the concept that years to hone your skills, but it's almost like you never can you? Because stuff keeps changing.
Absolutely. It's funny. My sales team, one of them came to me with an objection the other day, and she'd spoken to somebody and they said, oh, we've got a really experienced team, we don't do coaching, we don't do training, they're really experienced. I kind of like let them do their own thing. And she said to me, how do you address that? And I said, well, it's very difficult on a cold call to change that person's mindset. But for me, there is no, I'm really experienced, I know what I'm doing, because the market, the industry, the environment, technology, everything changes so quickly. You have to be on the ball to adapt and be agile. Look at lockdown, for crying out loud. We've all had to change the way we do things. As we've started E4Enable, I've had to change my way of doing things. I've come from an enterprise selling background, long, big, chunky deals, long sales cycles. And so I've had to change and adapt as I've changed my market and started looking and selling to different people. So yeah, I don't think you can come out of the oven baked. I think you're continually growing.
Because of the change. So talk to us just a little bit more about E4Enable, because that'll put more context around the rest of the conversation where I want to take it, because you mentioned the C word, the coaching word in this case.
Yeah, when I asked if I could swear, we're not going there.
It's just like, there could be edited. She didn't say it, I promise.
Yeah, so E4Enable, I mean, we're all about coaching. E4Enable is a data and competency-driven coaching platform. So it allows you to implement a coaching structure and culture within your organization, but be consistent and scale it and repeat it throughout your sales organization.
Cool. So coaching is sort of at the very heart of the stuff that you're passionate about. I know that we chatted chatted a lot about it. So, okay, let's start at the very beginning, as the song goes. Why is coaching so important?
Coaching is the continual middle part of any development journey. So training is one part, and I think fundamentally, if training doesn't go alongside coaching, then training has a massive potential to fail. So for me, coaching is that ability to say, I can now take everything that I've learned, and I can adapt it and embed it and start moving it into a usable structure for me and something that works for me. Everybody learns differently, everybody develops differently, everybody's at a different stage of their development journey. And when we learn something new, the ability to have somebody coach you through how you can apply that, how you can improve upon it, and the impact that has on your results is massively powerful. I don't believe that training is just the answer anymore. I think it's really important when you're learning new things to have training resources, but the power is in how you coach to that new learning, to really, if you like, put a firework up the ass of all of those new skills and actually get each individual in your team to be operating at their full potential.
We're on the same page, you know. Yeah, I say trainer, people can recognize what that is, but there's a bigger picture to getting the results, to getting the impact, to putting a firework up the ass. There we go. I am about to change my website copy.
It's funny, when people say to me, oh yeah, we're having sales training, we booked a week for sales training, my biggest question is to any of the managers, what are you going to do on the Tuesday after sales training? And they kind of, there's a silence of, well, what do you mean, what am I going to do on the Tuesday? Well, you've just had a week's worth of intense training, learning all these new ways of deep problem discovery or negotiation skills or whatever that might be. And on the Tuesday, as a manager, what, are you just going to go back to your day job? Are you just going to go do a bit of deal inspection, do that forecasting call, report up and in a lovely spreadsheet? Or are you actually going to help your team and coach your team to use it? And that question of what you're going to do on Tuesday after, Mondays are a write-off. They never do well on Monday. That's recovering from shell shock. But on the Tuesday, what are you going to do? And invariably the answer is a bit wobbly.
I thought Mondays were for other spreadsheets, but no, you're absolutely right. It's like, well, no, because the trainers come in, they've waved the magic wand, they've sort of given this, sales excellence vaccine. So he's a modern topic, and they'll be off and running. Someone else has done that for me, and it is. It's just, it's nonsense when you think about it that can happen.
Yeah.
I think also what is becoming very, very clear now is that kind of, I'm now calling it old-fashioned. That old-fashioned way of training, where you had this big intense event, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. I've done 5 days. When I have to travel somewhere because it suits everybody because of travel, it's a lot of stuff to take in.
Yeah, your brain just goes. And if when I used to train people and again do 3-4 days of intense training, right? The end of it would be like, I'd always say, just pick one thing. What's one thing you're going to change? Because if you try and change and practice everything, the wheels are going to fall off and you'll be an absolute mess. Like if you try and deploy all of these in your next discovery call or your next demo or your next sales meeting, honestly, you'll be a wibbly wobbly mess. So, what's the one thing? And if you take that approach of what's the one thing, it makes sense to do that in a very different way than that intense kind of 5 days of knowledge onslaught.
Yeah, and but we did it, and I know the reasons why. Partly trainer blame, I think, but equally it was customers. It was that's what people wanted to do, and if you suggested working smaller sessions virtually, whatever, they just wouldn't want to do it. However, we're kind of forced into that now, and I think people are really getting this stuff really works because we're putting stuff out at a pace people can understand with, and doing the coaching in between. They've got the brain space to apply it and talk to each other, the coach, the trainer, if they've set it up that way, to make it really fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're agreed on that. Right, start at the very beginning. Nice building blocks, nice simple conversation. Probably harder because it is so simple. where do we get started? Somebody just listened to this and sort of had this kind of eureka moment and gone, oh yeah, I've been trying to sort of do everything all at once. I'm not getting those impacts. Coaching's starting to make sense. Where do I start?
Oh God, that's a great question. I mean, part of it depends on where you are on your journey, but let's assume you're at absolute ground zero,
Yeah,
right?
not doing
And
anything, nothing at
you're not
all.
doing anything. The first thing I think, and we advocate massively at E for Enable, is give yourself a bit of a map, right? Start sitting down with somebody and going, right, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And that's a great, lots of the methodologies, the grow coaching model, is where do you want to be? What's the reality of where you are now? What options have you got to get there? And have you got the will and desire to do it? But doing that without some sort of structure is really, really difficult. So create a notion of what are the skills, the behaviors, the things that you want people to excel at that gives you even a pick a mix of things to start with. So you're not just pulling stuff out of thin air, because you can't do that consistently. It's really hard to repeat it and do that consistently. So we like to call it a competency framework or a coaching framework or a skills framework, whatever it might be. But it means that you've got something that you can say, if that's where you want to be, in a one-to-one, you're talking to somebody, if that's what you want to achieve, let's look at the skills that we can work on together that will give you the biggest bang for your buck, that are going to give you the most gains towards where you want to be. And that's a mindset shift as well, which isn't how are you going to get to quota, how are we going to hit your meeting target this week. It's the fundamental thing that I would say would shift in any coaching conversation is, what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be? Because that shifts the accountability and the ownership. It answers the what's in it for me. It's not the stick, it's the carrot. And it changes the whole conversation. So if you change those two things and say, okay, where do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? What's important to you? And then look, here's a bit of a map on the options that we can do to help you get there. Then that's a really good and pretty simple place to start without overcomplicating it with lots of different methodologies and things like that.
No, it is really elegant. Just out of interest, when you talked about the framework, you kind of said competency or coaching or skills. Was that kind of deliberate on how complex you're thinking this is? Because competency framework can sound a bit frightening and a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But when you get the skill framework, yeah, it's the stuff you need to do to have a result. Was that deliberate in the way that you position that, or maybe unconscious? I don't know.
Well, I'm going to say it's deliberate, Fred, because it sounds terribly, terribly intelligent and wonderful that it would be deliberate. So I'm going to claim it. Yes, it's mine.
Cool.
People call it different things, right? One of the things that I would absolutely say is less is more. I talk to people and they come and they say, right, we've got a skills, experience, behavior, and knowledge framework. In our behaviors, we've got 40 different competencies, and I'm just like, I'm floored. I'm like, where the bloody hell would you even start with that? How do you imagine a review going, let's just look at all these, and you're sitting down and somebody the other day sent 70 to us, and it was like, you can't have a meaningful
7-0.
7-0. Pare it down, think about what are the key fundamental things, and they might be skills, but the only danger for me in just talking about skill is you're missing a massive trick in coaching. A lot of people that I've spoken to, I've managed, I've coached, I've led in the past, their problem is not with skill. It's more with mindset or attitude. So just be careful that you don't layer everything into skills. Yes, have a really clear, you need to be good at problem discovery. You need to be good at identifying your ideal prospect. You need to be good at negotiation or deal control or whatever it might be, or understanding, articulating our solution. That's fine. They're your skills. But don't forget the stuff that makes up, your best and most brilliant salespeople. And more often than not, their attitudinal or their mindset traits. And somebody, for example, that's got struggling with their resilience or struggling with positivity and is a bit of a neggy poo, Neggy-Poo, just edit that one out.
No chance. I'm filming the episode. Don't be a negative.
but solving why they're feeling negative, how that's impacting the team and impacting their overall performance and development can more often be way more performance impactful than trying to get them to control their deals better. So that's my only thing when I talk about, don't just rely on skills. Yes, have a clear skills framework that you're working to, but just make sure that you're clearly understanding the other things that you should coach to, and not being afraid of coaching to them as well.
That's brilliant advice. That's really cool. So thinking about those mindset and attitude things, and we know with all of I suspect with all of these things that the more tailored and the more applicable to your own business that you make it, the better it's going to be.
Yeah.
But so just looking, if someone says, oh, okay, right, yeah, that's really cool. I actually got a skills framework, but I'd never really thought about the attitude side. How can I start to put that together? Can I just take some out of the box? Have you got some ready-made 3 attitudes for a salesperson? Or is there a better way to go about that?
I mean, yes, there are some that are just, fairly obvious things that I would pick, but I would prefer to take a different approach.
Okay.
And that's picking the person in your team, right? Every team has one. Who's the team cheerleader? Who's the person that rallies everybody? Who's the person that organizes the social stuff that makes it so that people gel together in the team? If you could pick one of the people in your team that does that, and they might not be your best salesperson, they might not be your best performer, but they're the person you'd have on your bus if you were to travel anywhere. Think about what makes them that important to your team and the traits that they exhibit, and that's sometimes quite a good place to start, because that's the sort of thing that you want to be able to encourage in others. Now, you're not going to create 10 versions of the same person, but you can certainly understand then the impact it has on the overall team dynamic and the individual performance of the people in your team. So yeah, I mean, positivity, resilience, being open, being coachable, open to feedback, all of those things are really important when we're talking about attitude. The other thing I like to think about is, that lone wolf that you've got in your team, who is still a bit of a BMW driving. Okay. Think about the things that the negative things that make him so that you wouldn't want to replicate, even though they're your top performer and you think they're amazing money wise, but you think, oh, I'm not sure I'd take them to my next business because why? What are those things? And again, that helps you on that journey of thinking, I don't want to cultivate those behaviors. I want to cultivate the opposite of those behaviors in the team and the individuals I work with.
Cool. So yeah, we've got the kind of positives and negatives. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. Okay, I can make a list from that, and then I can sort of go, and that's what it looks like. In fact, you probably done it the other way around and go, this is what it looks like. Then let's try and put a name on it. That's what we're now going to start to coach.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So got a bit of a framework, got a bit of a context. This is what I'm going to coach.
Yep.
How do I do that? Do I give myself a hat and start shouting at people through a great big... No coaches have megaphones. I don't know why.
Be more positive.
I don't know why the image everyone puts of a coach is with a bloke in a cap with a megaphone.
You're obviously doing it wrong, Fred.
Yeah, I like the megaphone. I'm going to keep using it. So how does somebody say, right, I can see where we're going now. This is cool. It's making sense. What do I need to do? The basics of, if you like.
Okay, so one of the things that I quite like to do is if you've got this map, if you've got this framework, is the person I'm about to coach is saying, I want you to go away and think about where you believe you are against each of those elements. And I'm going to go and do the same exercise. And then coming together and actually exploring the differences, not the similarities. So when somebody comes and says, oh, I think I'm rated really highly, a 5 or whatever on positivity, and I've gone, I think you're a 2, it drives a conversation. It asks the question, which is really important. Why do you think why do you think either this is holding you back or it's moving you forward? Why do I think that? What do we do to change that? So again, it goes a little bit back to that grow model then, which is, what's your goal? What's the reality? Where are you against this competency in reality based on our discussions? And now what can we do about it? What options have we got to actually fundamentally move the bar in that particular skill or behavior or attitude that we believe is going to give you the best, like I said earlier, bang for your buck?
Okay. And why is an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, quite often, salespeople are told to be quite careful with that. You've used that a load of times.
Yeah.
Why?
Why opens up the importance to the individual. One of the things, yes, you don't, asking why sometimes and asking really broad questions in sales to customers can be quite a difficult thing to do, because it takes you down a potential rabbit hole that you can't solve, or you don't have a solution for. As a coach, you've got to go into it without feeling like you've got a ready-made solution. The solution has to come from the exploration of the challenge or the goal that somebody wants to achieve, right? So asking those big questions of, why do you think that is?
Yeah.
And what's made you say that right now? And can you give me an example of? Or asking a why question means that you don't have an agenda as to where this is going to end, and it might be that it takes you a whole different avenue, and that the individual comes to the eureka moment of, actually, here's what I need to do. And yes, we've identified that I'm a Neggy-Poo and that's holding me back massively, and I can see that now, and the reason I think I'm like that, and it can be a bit strange, for sales leaders, because it can get into personal conversations. But if that's what's holding somebody back to maximize their performance, then no amount of negotiation training or engagement at the buying center, account mapping, is going to help that individual maximize their potential.
Okay, so we can use why very deliberately. So I think sometimes we're told, or we say, be careful with it because people can get defensive. Well, that's the point. You want them to really, if they have to defend and understand why they're defending it or whatever. Yeah.
So it's important to give context, because I'm a little bit like, sometimes it drives me insane when somebody who's practiced in coaching just continually asks questions. It does my head in, because I'm just like, look, you've got a point, let's get to it. Giving a bit of context and an example when you're asking those why questions is sometimes quite powerful and can take the edge off that kind of interrogation feel. I like to ask you why. Let me explain why I'd want to do that. So for me, when I ask myself why I and the story, just the same as we're taught to storytell and give social proof in selling, it's sometimes important to do that when you're coaching, which is just give that context. Let me explain to you why I'm asking the question why, because I think there's something more there, and I think if we get to that, it's going to improve X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I'm sort of smiling because it sounds like we're very much on the same page for coaching, in that there are a lot of pure coaches out there who will now be throwing whatever device they're listening to this on. But yeah, I'm more than comfortable with what you're saying. In fact, on my own website, I go, coaching we do is pragmatic, not dogmatic.
Yeah.
In other words,
signposting.
But even to the point, I would say, and again, I'd like your opinion on this, that if there is a clear way that somebody can do something better, what about just saying, you know what? What about doing this?
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because pure play coaching, if you go to a life coach that's absolutely trained, and I think they're brilliant, but they're not always. We probably overuse the word coaching a little bit. It's probably a bridge between coaching, mentorship, and leadership, what we're talking about in reality here, which is, it's okay to say, look, we've got a problem area here, we've identified that together, we've drawn that out. Let me look at a couple of things that have worked for Bob. Let me look at a couple of things that have worked for me in the past. You can signpost that and then say, right, where do we think we start? It still sits for me under that broad brush coaching umbrella. Yeah, it might not be to the letter, but it's when you're fresh into something, brand new into, say, a sales role or something, continually asking somebody a question just drives, as you phrase, a frustration and a bit like, well, all right, I don't bloody know, tell me, and then we can get there a lot faster. I suppose the big thing for me is the coaching is identifying is really important when you're identifying there is a gap. Once you've identified that gap, you can move into that mentorship leadership discussion, which is how do we solve that? What's the plan? What's the action plan? What are the coaching points that we're gonna go work with? And as long as you've got the buy-in of the individual that you're talking to, that they understand that it's going to help them fill that gap, and that gap is something they've acknowledged themselves, then it's got power.
No, agreed. Actually, I'd say that it's not necessarily just new salespeople that you're asking them why or what's this for, and they go, I just don't know. I haven't got the experience, not anything, to be able to answer the question. It doesn't have to be just new. It could be somebody quite experienced.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
can't see why. Guess what? If I knew the answer, do you think I'd be doing it?
Yeah.
So stop asking me. Give me a little bit of a thing. That's why I want to talk to you, because I know that you might well have the answer. Give me a nudge.
Yeah. So in our platform we have a competency framework, and we have the ability that you can just like hit a search button and say, let me show me all the stuff that relates to this, because we've identified this as a problem area or an area I want to focus on. And that can be like, oh look, here's a role play somebody else did that you can listen into. Here's a blog post that somebody wrote after reading Fred's book, at which they found amazing, and all the things you need to know about in the partnering world that you should go read. Or here's a training course, a bite-sized training thing that can help you. It isn't necessarily a needing to draw it out lots and lots of questions. You can lean on your experience.
Can you upload my book into your platform?
Oh yeah, absolutely, in a heartbeat.
No. So okay, we're not editing that either.
We're not an AI robot, Fred. But yes, in reality, yes, absolutely, we could.
But now talking, I know why you said AI robots. So let's move this along a little bit, because you've said that, because we've had a conversation offline, didn't we, about Rocky. So my mate Rocky, who's this AI robot, which will ask you coaching questions. So Rocky's got frameworks built in. You can ask him to help you with a number of areas, from wellness, communication, clarity, purpose, a whole load of different areas. And recently, he's read my book. I think it probably took him about 3 nanoseconds being a robot. But joking apart, all that stuff is in there.
Yeah.
But the point is that this technology, the robot is being used, the chatbot is being used to ask people the stimulation reflection questions instead of a person.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? You're allowed to swear still.
I think there is. I'm all about consistency and scale, right? If you're going to coach, or you're going to introduce a culture of kind of continual performance coaching development, then you need to do something that scales. And if you can support your sales leaders by saying, look, some of the foundational stuff that helps identify and help somebody self-identify where their gaps are, then that's got to be worth exploring, right? If you can be able to say, look, we can tell, but we use data. So we say, okay, here's data, we benchmark it. We say, these are all of the pinpoints that say you've got a problem here. And if you've got a problem here, that's linked to this skill. Having an AI robot friend, lockdown companion, as you have, Fred, is like taking that to just is a next level, isn't it? Doing some of that foundational stuff. I don't think it's a full-on replacement. I don't think it allows you to spitball the ideas that you would with a leader. I don't necessarily think it does that, but it is a great way to do those reflective foundational questions. Maybe before you go into your coaching session, here's all the stuff to think about, or some of the things to think about before you go into that. Is a really interesting thought, right?
Yeah, for me, rather than it's before, again, it does not replace humans. Let's get that clear. I don't think it does. But actually, the word you use with consistency, that's where I personally find its benefit. In that, every morning, every night, 5-minute little sort of half dozen questions, which gets me thinking, and that's kind of what coaching is about. It's what coaching is about. It's getting you to think.
Yeah.
And so I've decided, I need help with discipline, yeah, productivity, time management. That's the course, or that's the direction I ask Rocky to take me on. So it just asked me, how are you going to be focused today? What are the main things that you need to do? How are you going to do it? What prep do you need to do? It fires off those are the pretty much 4 questions this morning. Okay, cool. Right. No, that's put me on the right track.
Yeah.
End of the day, what was the biggest thing you achieved? What you did to do that, etc., etc. So the way I see it, I don't think that would be necessarily a good use of a sales manager's, sales leaders, or any manager or leader's time. But it's doing this habitual stuff of thinking about it. But then when we come to that very precious use of human to human, we can get into hopefully some deeper stuff. That's how I see it anyway. That's kind of where I think it fits really nicely.
Yeah, I like the idea, Fred. I think that the bit that needs the most care and attention is that human technology interface between the leader and the tech, if you like. It's too easy to go, oh, we've got an AI robot, or we've got a platform that'll just do that for me. I don't need to partake in it. That handoff between the tech and the leader that's making sure that that's fundamentally part of their culture is unbelievably important. If we've got this platform, whether it's E4Enable platform, whether it's Rocky, it's irrelevant. If you've got a leader that then just thinks, well, that does that, I'm just going to whip them on a deal inspection or their forecast accuracy, it breaks, and everything breaks, and everything becomes meaningless. And so you have to have that handoff, that interface, really carefully managed. And I think that goes with any technology to a certain degree.
No, agreed. Yeah, I can hear the alarm bells actually in the sort of thinking, hang on a minute, you've got these managers, you talk about the guys with the spreadsheets. Oh, I've worked with some who are going, right, I bought you Rocky, that's your coaching done, that's spreadsheets.
Yeah.
More time
they can ask you how you feel every morning. I don't have to. Yeah.
More tabs. Let's get some more things. Let me measure more stuff that makes no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
So agreed on that.
There's just a fundamental cultural aspect, I think, that sits underneath it that needs fixing before you layer technology on top. And one can be a catalyst, I get that, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I wonder whether people would supply their team even a chatbot if they didn't get coaching, but maybe they would. Maybe just think it's the easy way out. So just talk about E4Enable then, because you mentioned that and said that can supply information, it can pick stuff from data, it can point you in the right direction. Can that then run without any human interaction if you're not careful? Don't say, no, we wouldn't let someone do that. But what I'm saying is if you weren't properly bought into it.
I think it's a guided development piece. So it's not going to say, here are all the things you as an individual can do. It's going to say, look, I can point out to you as a sales rep that when we benchmark and analyze all of the leading indicators, you've got a gap that's consistently coming here. That gap that we've aligned is aligned to these 3 skill areas, or these 2 skill areas that would be your guided coaching areas that you should focus on. Yeah, coming up with that plan and holding that accountability then still requires the human element. It's just that you want to take away the admin burden and the follow-up and the chasing and the juggling multiple things from those people, the stuff that doesn't matter but is doesn't matter and is annoying to their day job but is fundamental to the success of the program. If you can take that stuff away, then it means that you do have more time for the actual conversations that are happening.
Yeah, and so I'm making notes here. What I've kind of underlined is the benchmark and analyze. Rocky, or even not Rocky, another coach, a real life person can ask you a question and then you got to reflect on it. And that's only going to be the stuff coming out of your own head, isn't it? Whereas if it's, I've taken the data of the stuff that you have put in here, this is real life you, Fred, you do not follow proposals up. Either that, you don't use CRM. I'm guessing. I think this is how.
Or you're struggling.
Okay, well, you haven't got the discipline to say that you do it then. Whichever way, there's a conversation to be had here. And that's fact, because that is what the real life information is. It's not what I've had to create myself. This is where it's
a
level. That's your stuff. It's no one else's. Your name on it, mate.
Yeah, and you're right in saying that if it's the fact that you're not putting stuff into CRM, then we've still got a challenge there. We often come across the fact that you've got people who, because of the targets they're given, they become really busy fools. So if you looked at their metrics, you can say you're smashing it on the number of meetings you're having, or you're smashing it on the number of calls you're making. But when you dig beneath the surface and realize their conversion rates aren't quite there, and you realize that actually there's a skill problem that's wasting that good energy. And that's the bit you've got to solve, and that's the bit that, again, you can't argue with the fact that that's fundamentally the data, but the data itself, do more of this or do more of that or get better. It's the skill coaching then that will take place, or the attitudinal, the competency coaching that takes place in there, that's the really important stuff.
Yeah, so the skills and the attitude is the main thing coming back. Okay, cool. So this is very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. So there is a place for Rocky. There is a place for my mate, but there's a place for everything. For me, the way I look at it is everything, anything that is helping people to think about getting better and to then get better has got to be. It's got to be good. But of course, it can become better in the way that you apply that. We've kind of laid out coaching, and you've made it sound. If I say simple, take it in the terms of, it's actually, it's not, it shouldn't be that difficult. You've got your framework, you know what you're trying to achieve, you're having conversations with people, and they're going to do something as a result of it. Kind of. A little bit more to it than that, but that's what we just spent the last half an hour talking about. Why don't people do that then? What stops everyone doing it? Because you also laid out the benefits really well. So why is everyone doing this all the time and loads of it? Because it just makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I've quite strong opinions on this.
Still allowed to swear. There's swear.
Discipline, pressure, and short-termism. It is some of the ruination of kind of a good coaching or a transformation or anything, development. So short-termism, because coaching is not going to solve your problem by next week.
Yeah.
But you might see a flutter of improvement if you beat somebody over the head to do more calls. It ain't gonna, it's the feed a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, and feed him for a lifetime comparison. You're going to get an immediate from doing a bit of beating around the head. You're not going to get an immediate from doing a coaching session. That's going to take a little bit of a longer burn. So short-termism is a real challenge, and short-termism is then linked to pressure. Pressure comes from above. Pressure comes to say your forecast isn't on, you haven't hit your number, and a lot of sales managers don't grow big enough shoulders. It's one of the biggest things you have to do. Either buy a bloody big umbrella, because you're going to get rained on pressure, and if you can't hold that pressure and convert it into a positive move, then all the good stuff that you've put into place goes out the window, because you will revert to deal inspection and say, well, have you phoned that guy yet? Have you phoned that guy? Have you found out? Have you got feedback yet? Have you sent the proposal out? And that's not coaching. It's not development. It's just micromanagement and beating somebody or management by spreadsheet. And that then links back to discipline. Having the discipline to consistently and continually do it for the long term is something that, oh God, it takes a lot of discipline and self-control and passion and just sort of structure and organization. So those are the three things I think that can, what is, as you say, a simple construct, and when you lay it out, you think, bloody hell, why don't we do that? But it's easy to sit here and say, oh, I always coach, I'm just so amazing, I don't ever have any of those conversations with my team. I get under pressure and I go, oh crap, we're off our number for this month. And I want to, and I've fallen into the trap of reverting and saying, right, well, we're not going to do a coaching session. I just need to get up to date on your deals. And that has its place, but have it as a separate space. So yeah, short-termism, pressure, and kind of discipline are the enemy of coaching.
Yeah, and again, I suspect there's people who have got all the best intentions, and do this and do it, pretty well, be listening and going, yeah, that's what it happens. We've all got patchwork quilts of of diaries now, haven't we? Which is Zoom call, Zoom call, Zoom call, Zoom call, however. And you just start feeling the pressure on it, and so that says coaching. Well, let's just take that out and put something else in there
Let's shift it.
that's going to be more productive. And that's that dangerous phrase, isn't it? Be more productive. Well, if I'm talking to this customer now, it's the 27th of the month, and we know what happens then. It just becomes all crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's that short-termism. It's just that pressure point that you need to do, and it perhaps takes Rocky to be reminding you in reflection at the end of every day why you're doing it in the first place.
And to be fair, that is something where it would work. That's the thing. You look and you get in the habit, and it's 5 minutes, and I've usually got about 2 hours while all the soaps operas on that I could be looking at Rocky. But no, it's just ask that little question, what you done today? Did it go according to plan? You think, no, I bounced somebody's coaching session. Did you achieve what you set out to do? No.
No, and that's not going to help them. It's not going to ultimately help us go.
Yeah. So, okay. Cool. That's such an interesting. We could go on and on and on, and so be a little bit careful with this, but so interesting. So what is the best way people could get in touch with you? Because I'm hoping that they'll be hearing this and thinking, we want to know a bit more about coaching. We want to sort of tap into your thoughts, and more importantly, the system that you have, which hopefully makes it a bit more, well, hopefully, I know it makes it longer term. It takes some of the pressure off, and it instills some of the discipline. Because ultimately that will give you the sales results. That's what we're all in the business. Well, we're in the business of doing, isn't it? Giving sales.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How do people get in touch with you?
Doddle, kate@eforenable.com. Put it out there. Feel free to pitch at me or anything like that. I'm always happy to help as well. Link with me on LinkedIn. I'm generally there every day, so give me a bell on there. So probably those two the best bits to get hold of me.
Did you just say feel free to pitch at me?
Absolutely. Why not?
Do you not run a pitching club?
Absolutely, we do. It was with my pals, Benjamin, Alex, and Costas. Yeah, the pitching points. If anybody ever wants practice and wants to explore that feedback and coaching that perhaps isn't so like question-led and everything, and just get a bit of advice and guidance and test stuff out, then I'd love to get you on the pitching point.
The pitching point. Okay, so feel free to pitch, but be careful. This is
you may get invited on.
No, we will drop the details for that in the show notes, because I know it's a load of fun, isn't it? But it actually really helps people as well. So we'll pop that one in too.
Yeah.
That is superb. Thank you so much for your time, Kate. Really enjoyed catching you.
Really brilliant. Thanks, Fred. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.